I'm basically Maria from The Sound of Music. It's my life goal, apart from the kids and the husband and the nunnery and the story. Hello, my name's Lipa. I did make my own prom dress out of a curtain. And for some people, maybe that's not that crazy. So prom was actually 2 weeks ago now, and if that doesn't tell you how slowly I make videos, then I'm forced to tell you that I started to make a Christmas video and it's still not finished, and now it's just so embarrassingly late. I don't know if I should wait for the whole year to post it or if I should make a bigger fool out of myself and post it now. Anyways, the prom was fun. The food was not that fun, but what could you expect from a fancy restaurant? So I also want to put out there that it wasn't merely my inner creation monster who possessed me to do this. I just feel like prom is one of those things where a lot of people feel like they have to spend a lot of money on something that sadly the majority of people tend to only wear once and then let it hang there for years. But eventually I'm hoping that everything gets donated or sold so that the clothes can get a second life or a 50th life, which is great because it can save someone a lot of money and let them enjoy it as well. Also, obviously, it's really great for the environment. It takes so much water and chemicals and so much work into just making one little piece of fabric. So when we make clothes, we really want to make sure that we wear everything as much as we possibly can. And I know I didn't thrift my dress even though I could have, but the fabrics that I used were thrifted, so the damage was already done, as with everything thrifted. I'm just really happy that I got to make something of my own. It didn't turn out into anything out of the ordinary, but I'm just proud that I managed to make something that looked so well made. With all of this out of the way, let's get into the video.
Here are the fabrics I used. I actually went on a fabric hunt, full on focus mode, to all the thrift stores in town, and I didn't find any fabrics. That is to say, I found a lot of fabrics and I purchased all those fabrics and am now hoarding them until I find a product for them. But none of them were of prom dress material, meaning none of them were shiny. None had the shine. So in hopeless defeat, I went home and I started to realize 2 school weeks was certainly not the optimal time span for my first project of this proportion. I don't know what I meant with that. Just, I hadn't made a gown, ever. I had barely made a dress. I had never made a pretty dress, not to mention fancy. So I had to look through my prior to the failed fabric hunt fabric stash, and there I found this burgundy. I do not know till this day what type of fabric it is, but at least it had shine. Fabric that I already had exciting plans for, but those had to be crushed because it was a prom emergency. And also this organza fabric. Sadly, very probably polyester, because it looked in fact very cheap and plasticky, and it frayed so easily, but that didn't matter because it had shine. Not to mention, it was a prom emergency. So a vital thing to mention is that I had made no sketch and seemingly had no plan at all at any stage in this process. I just kind of started and then got ideas and then never said no to any ideas, and somehow miraculously, spoiler alert, but we all know I managed to do it in the end, so who cares, somewhat miraculously it turned into a gown. With all that said, not all ideas worked out, and here are some of the mistakes in the early stages. I wanted double layers where like the see-through organza was a gathered skirt on top of the burgundy dress, but that just ended up looking atrocious for many reasons. For example, no matter how much I ironed it, it wrinkled, and it wasn't sheer enough. So I scratched that idea pretty quickly and decided to do something else, but focus on the actual dress first, because priorities. First, you're gonna want to remove the evidence of it being a curtain. Now, don't mind the angle, I just couldn't be bothered to take 2 seconds to adjust the tripod, and sitting like this was the only way I could hide my "I haven't showered in days, give me a break, it's the weekend" face. However, I now realize my oilier than Olive's hair is giving it away. Here I felt lazy and just wanted to make a bodice around my body. I've seen other sewing YouTubers do this, so why couldn't I? But I forgot I lacked talent. So instead I quickly sketched out these front and back pieces. Since I'm no wizard nor pro, I of course didn't really trust my ability to make patterns that would perfectly fit, so I made both of them generously too big. Then I traced that on my fabric, and too late I realized I wanted 2 of each pattern so I could sew them together, because that is how fancy wear is made. Not to worry, I just did it again. Then I pinned those together, right sides together, leaving one side open, same side on both pieces. I don't know why, it just is that way, so that I could turn it right sides out after sewing them together. Then to make the straps, I marked about 7 centimeters along the bottom of the skirt to be, meaning the straps were initially the width of the fabric long, and cut along that line. Then I folded this super long strap right sides together and pinned. then sewed with a regular straight stitch. Then to turn it inside out, right side out, I put a safety pin like this on the outside of the wormy thingy, and then fed it to the worm and shoved it further and further. Still okay, no, enough with the worm. It's not a worm anymore, it's fabric. Strictly technical terms, you feed the safety pin through the loop until you've reached the other opening, and then pull till the inside is now the outside. Then I split that super long strap into two, and for some reason I was possessed to serge the open edges using a zigzag stitch for seemingly no reason at all. The straps were going to be hidden on the inside, but oh well. Then I measured and marked where I thought I wanted them to sit. Spoiler alert, I put them too far to the sides, but I was too lazy to fix it once I had sewn everything together. But it's okay, it didn't look too stupid. So then I sewed the two bodice pieces together. Then we arrived at the more fun bit. I mean, it was fun doing it, especially because it turned out so great on literally the first try, which sounds like a total lie, but it isn't. So these kinds of pleats, typically known as box pleats, I think, are the kind that I have done 3 times in my lifetime now, and I'm just getting better and better at it. However, while many may argue you need a plan and measurements and all that, I have no idea how that would work. I tried once, but it just turned out horribly wrong, and then I improvised and it worked out miraculously perfect. I cannot explain how, I suppose I'm just blessed. These are the closest to calculations I can give. The entire width of the fabric was somewhere between at least taller than me and less than 200 centimeters. I made 8 box pleats, and each box pleat consists of 2 pleats going in opposite directions, which creates 1 big pleat. The size of the big pleat was 9 centimeters, and even though I'm pretty sure real box pleats meet in the back where we see 2 pleats, my non-existing calculations calculated that this would not work out if we also wanted this desired pleat touching at the front as well. The fabric was not wide enough, so instead the non-existing calculations determined that there would be however much space created when each small pleat in a big pleat would be 3 centimeters, and you fold it, so ultimately I'm thinking you should have lost 6 centimeters of the width for every small pleat, and then you have 2 of those to make 1 big pleat that is somehow 9 centimeters. You can see how this is confusing, but it don't matter because fate or miracle or Santa is on my side, and my very early Christmas present was that it somehow worked out perfectly. I'm sorry for not explaining that for human or any species comprehension, but really what I am saying is that you can make box pleated skirts even if you, like me, don't know how nor like to make calculations. You just have to try different measurements and pin and then try on, and eventually it will work out perfectly. And if some unearthly being out there is on your side, you will succeed immediately. It has literally happened to me 3 times now. It's kind of insane. So then I sewed those down with a, could you believe it, straight stitch. Then it was time to pin the bodice pieces together, and I took my sweet time doing this to make sure the 2 pieces were perfectly aligned at the top, because again, we're making fancy wear. Not a this dress was made at 10 p.m, several 10 p.m.s, and only 10 p.m. dress. Then it was time to take this 2-piece and make it into a dress. I pinned them together and they fit almost perfectly since I had fitted them both to fit the measurement of my upper waist. I don't know if that is what it's called, like above the waist, really high waist, I don't know. Then I made yet another laughable mistake by cutting this piece off, as the top was too big from the beginning, just not this much too big. So I had to sew that back on, but I'm not too sad about this, even though evidently it was extra work, because I did manage to stitch it back up. Like the true doctor I am, I will never be a doctor. I got a D in math, even though I worked really hard. So this is not really a mistake, merely something that could have been handled better, because I knew the skirt and the top was too long and I still sewed them together. Very stupid, I know, but totally manageable. I just measured how much I wanted to shorten it in total and then sewed over the skirt and the top again, further down from the original attached seam. Now that it was finally a dress, it was time to create a way for me to enter it, or I mean put it on. So I used a long, maybe 20 to 25 centimeter invisible zipper and attached it on the side where our only opening was. So I pinned the zipper down with the top or the right side of the zip facing down, on the right side of the dress. A tip for sewing zippers is to close the zip and check that nothing's twisted before you sew. Then I sewed the zip down using my zipper foot, as close to the zipper teeth as possible. Once that was sewn in place, I closed the opening and sewed it down. Then last but definitely not least, unless you want an avant-garde finish to your dress, the straps need to be attached to the back. To make this as simple as possible, I had my mom help me with marking where I wanted them and how tight they should be. I also decided I wanted them to cross each other in the back to add a cute, simple detail. Then I sewed that down by hand because then I could sew it so that there was no seams on the outside of the dress. That is to say, I sewed the straps together with the inside layer of the back piece. Now for the final and most stressful part of this creation, a sort of wrap dress to wear on top of the burgundy dress, with a belt to tie it into a bow at the back. First thing I did was make a pattern. I made sort of like a half a big tank top pattern to begin with, and then took a ruler and made the side completely straight and the part that was to go towards the middle angled so that it became larger and larger towards the bottom. I also made it shorter than my dress because I like the idea of the red sticking out at the bottom. So I folded it before placing the pattern on top of it, pinning and cutting. This way I would have one left and one right wrap piece. So the honestly most tedious part of this whole project was when I had to hem this entire giant final wrap thingy. And I also made a large pattern for the back, then I cut that out again on a fold to make a full piece. I hemmed all the now raw edges before sewing them all together. To make this strap, I cut out a 12 centimeter wide, don't know how long, but as long as the organza was, piece, and hemmed all the edges before folding it in half, right sides together. Same process as with the straps. And finally, the last thing I did was hemming the bottom. It had to be done last because once the three pieces were sewn together, they weren't the same length for some reason. I made a circular cut and then hemmed. It was very tricky, but finally we were done. Unfortunately, I didn't take too many awkward prom pictures at my actual prom. And the ones I did were with my friends and none of them know I make these videos, so it doesn't seem right to include their faces. But no need to worry, evidently I had my own awkward prom photo shoot and it took place in numerous places all over my house. So here we go. Thank you so much for watching. Please do subscribe if you would like to see more curtain creations or thrift clips. You don't have to though, I can't make you.